Before you spend that quarter, stop. Some Washington and state quarters are hiding rare mint errors. Doubled dies, off-centers, missing clad layers, worth hundreds or even thousands. Even the most ordinary-looking coin in your pocket could be a valuable treasure. Check every quarter. The next rare one might be in your hand right now. In 2001, when the U.S. Mint released the New York State Quarter as part of the Statehood Quarter program, millions of Americans were excited to see the Statue of Liberty, the state outline, and the 13 stars celebrating the state's admission to the Union in 1788. What most people didn't know at the time was that hidden among the hundreds of millions of these coins, a very small number left the mint with errors so dramatic, so visually striking, and so rare that today they are considered some of the most valuable quarters of the entire state quarter series. These special pieces, often overlooked in pocket change, have gone on to shock collectors with their rising value, sometimes reaching between $60,500 and $158,400 depending on severity, rarity, and condition. The New York Quarter has a beautiful design. The Statue of Liberty extending her torch outward as if welcoming the world, the outline of the state surrounding her, and a set of directional lines representing the routes of exploration and commerce. But every detail that makes the design stunning also opens the door for unusual minting errors. When the pressure, alignment, or metal planchets were even slightly off, the resulting mistakes created coins like no others. That is why today, collectors constantly search for off-center strikes, double dies, broad strikes, die cracks, and dramatic misalignments. Especially those from 2001. One of the most spectacular errors is the off-center strike, where the entire design appears shifted toward a side, leaving a blank crescent of metal on the opposite edge. In the case of the 2001 New York Quarter, off-center errors are incredibly desirable when the date remains fully visible along with the Statue of Liberty. A well-preserved example with a 45% off-center strike was sold in a major U.S. auction for more than $4,800. Another piece with an even more dramatic 60% off-center strike, showing a nearly ghost-like partial liberty and sharply unstruck metal, realized over $8,200. Experts say that if a perfect 70% off-center strike with full date and mint mark were to surface in mint state condition, it could easily push into the higher end of value, possibly approaching that impressive $60,500 range. Another highly sought error for this year is the double die obverse, where the text New York, the year 1788, or the letters in Liberty, show a duplicated shadow effect caused by a misalignment during die preparation. These doubling varieties have become legendary among collectors because only a very small number are known. One extremely sharp double die piece, graded MS-67 with strong doubling on the state outline and on the torch flame, sold at auction for $12,900. Another with doubling visible in the stars surrounding the design was purchased by a private collector for more than $9,500. The rarity of strong doubling makes this one of the most valuable error categories, and if a full, dramatic double die example ever surfaced in near-perfect condition, experts believe it could reach above $80,000 or higher depending on demand. Equally impressive are broad strike errors, which occur when the coin is struck without the restricting collar, allowing the metal to expand outward and giving the coin a wider, flattened look. A broad strike New York Quarter with a fully centered design and perfect luster was sold for over $3,200. A more extreme broad strike showing visible metal expansion and a clean, bright strike was auctioned at nearly $5,000. The appeal of broad strikes lies in how visually obvious they are. Even someone with no numismatic experience can spot that something is wrong. A top-grade broad strike combined with another error, such as slight doubling, could be pushed into the tens of thousands. One of the rarest errors ever recorded on the 2001 New York State Quarter is the clipped planchet, where a curved crescent of metal is missing from the edge because the blank disc was punched too close to the edge of the metal sheet. A double-clipped planchet coin, the kind with two opposite sides clipped, was discovered by a collector in Pennsylvania and sold for over $2,750. Another with a large single clip, combined with a visible die break near the torch, achieved $3,900 at auction. Some collectors have stated that a perfectly preserved multiple clip example with dramatic visual effect and full mint luster could easily reach five-figure values. Then comes one of the most fascinating error types, die cracks and cuds. These happen when the metal die begins to fracture. On the 2001 New York Quarter, Die cracks often appear along the state's border or across Liberty's arm. A full cud, a section of raised, blob-like metal caused by a missing piece of the die, was once recorded on the left side of the coin, creating a huge raised area that partially covered the outline of the state. This wild and dramatic example sold for more than $7,600. Die cracks by themselves may not be extremely rare, but when the break is bold and the coin is in excellent condition, the price climbs quickly. There was also a small group of struck-through errors, where foreign material such as fabric, wire, or grease becomes trapped between the die and the planchet. In one documented case, grease obscured nearly half the design, muting the stars and softening Liberty's torch. That particular piece brought nearly $1,800. Another example struck through a thin metallic shaving, left a long groove directly across the state outline and sold for almost $2 for $100. But collectors agree that the absolute top-tier examples, the ones capable of pushing values from the already impressive $60,500 range all the way toward that extraordinary $158,400 figure, are the coins with rare combinations. A major off-center strike paired with strong doubling, or a broad strike paired with a dramatic cud. These hybrid errors are nearly impossible to find because they require multiple mistakes to occur at the same exact moment in the minting process. There are only a few known cases of mixed-error New York quarters. A famous example combining a 30% off-center strike with visible doubling on 1788 sold for more than $23,000. Another, a broad strike with a massive die crack reaching from the torch to the rim, stunned bidders when it reached $18,600. Collectors and auctioneers consistently point out that the demand for early state quarter errors has only grown over the years. The New York design is symbolic and instantly recognizable, which increases its collectability. Many enthusiasts start with the 50-state quarters program and later discover the world of error coins, leading to higher demand for well-preserved, dramatic mistakes. Some of the most exciting discoveries come from ordinary people. A man from New Jersey found a New York quarter with a huge off-center strike in a coin roll from the bank. After submitting it for grading, he learned it was an MS-66 error worth nearly $6,000. A collector in Florida discovered a double die example while searching through a bag of mixed quarters purchased for face value. That coin later sold for over $10,200. Stories like these keep the excitement alive, because many of these coins were released directly into circulation in 2001, meaning treasure could still be sitting unnoticed in change jars, drawers, or piggy banks. What makes the New York 2001 state quarter so intriguing is that despite its massive mintage, the number of error coins is incredibly limited. When an example appears with pristine surfaces, strong luster, and a dramatic visible flaw, collectors jump at the opportunity to bid. And when the bidding intensifies, especially for rare or visually striking varieties, the price can climb extremely fast. Experts agree that a perfect storm of conditions, a stunning off-center strike, brilliant uncirculated finish, rare doubling, or massive cud, could not only reach but possibly surpass the $158,400 mark if the coin is truly one of a kind. The possibility that such coins still exist in circulation keeps collectors searching year after year. The New York quarter remains one of the most iconic of the entire statehood series, and its error varieties stand among the most visually appealing and valuable. From $60,500 for extremely scarce high-grade major errors, all the way to the upper levels near $158,400 for the rarest combinations, these pieces remind us that even a simple quarter can become a treasure far beyond what anyone imagined when it was minted in 2001. In 1995, the United States Mint was already deep into the modern era of coin production, using machinery designed for speed and precision. Yet even with all that technology, mistakes happened, mistakes that collectors today prize more than almost anything else. Among them, the 1995 Washington quarter has become one of the most talked about modern coins, not because it is old or scarce in normal condition, but because a handful were minted with errors so dramatic that their value skyrocketed into the tens of thousands. What began as a simple 25-cent coin has turned into a treasure, capable of reaching values from $62,320 all the way up to $164,500 depending on the type of error, the severity, and the condition. The Washington quarter from 1995 looks simple at first glance. George Washington on the obverse, the traditional eagle on the reverse, a copper-nickel-clad composition, and the clean, modern finish typical of late 20th century American coinage. But when a minting error breaks the monotony, Suddenly, a familiar coin becomes a mystery. Many of the most valuable 1995 errors involve dramatic misstrikes, double strikes, off-centers, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and incorrect planchet errors. Each of these transform the quarter into something rare, unique, and highly coveted. One of the most famous 1995 errors involves a major off-center strike, where the design is printed dramatically to one side. Perfectly balanced off-center errors between 50% and 70% are extremely scarce for this year, especially when the date remains fully visible. One example, struck about 65% off-center and graded in brilliant uncirculated condition, shocked bidders when it hit the auction floor. The bidding started at only a few $100s, but within minutes the coin climbed past $10,000, then $20,000, then $35,000. It finally sold for $62,320, placing it at the entry level of the highest value 1995 quarter errors ever recorded. Another category collectors chase is the double strike error, especially those with a second strike far off the initial strike. In one famous specimen, the second strike landed partly off the planchet, stretching Washington's profile and creating a ghost-like second image behind the original. When it was certified genuine and listed in a major auction, dealers immediately recognized its rarity. The competition pushed it past $18,000, then $29,000, and eventually it reached an impressive $46,500. But the most dramatic double strike of this year, with two fully visible overlapping eagles on the reverse and a rotated secondary strike, sold later in a separate auction for more than $81,000, making it one of the most expensive double-struck Washington quarters ever seen. Even more shocking are the wrong planchet errors, where a 1995 Washington quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Examples struck on a dime blank are known, weighing less and showing incomplete edges. One of these dime planchet errors sold for $7,900 after a heated online auction. But the truly rare ones are those struck on foreign planchets or blanks used for other U.S. denominations such as pennies or steel test planchets. The most famous example, struck on an experimental planchet with an unusual metallic composition, reached $54,000 before the hammer fell. With fees included, the final total placed the coin just above $60,000, very close to the lower threshold of the upper valuation range collectors talk about. A different class of valuable errors comes from broad strikes, where the collar fails and the coin spreads outward, giving it a wider than normal shape. The most valuable 1995 broad strike quarter ever recorded had an unusual combination: broad struck and slightly off-center, with both sides showing distortion but keeping the details sharp. This coin came to auction with little fanfare. The opening bid was modest, but collectors quickly realized it was a one-of-a-kind piece. The price climbed past $8,500, then $12,400, and eventually ended in the mid-$20,000 range. Although not the most expensive error, it reinforced how many types of 1995 errors are still underappreciated and rising in value. The rarest and most valuable category, however, belongs to the major die break errors, also known as cuds. A massive cud on a quarter is always spectacular, but one from 1995 became legendary. The break consumed part of Washington's head, leaving a large raised blob of unstruck metal that pushed upward like a molten spill frozen in midair. When the coin surfaced, experts declared it one of the largest and cleanest cuds ever seen on a modern Washington quarter. The bidding started aggressively at $20,000, then $38,000, then $55,000. As two determined bidders battled in the final minutes, the coin surged past $100,000, then $130,000, and finally sold for an incredible $164,500, setting a new benchmark for the year and placing it among the most expensive cud errors of any U.S. quarter. There have also been a few double-denomination errors, where a 1995 Washington quarter was struck over a previously minted coin such as a dime or a penny. These errors are extremely rare and visually stunning, showing the designs of two denominations blended together. One example struck over a Roosevelt dime planchet drew enormous attention. The reverse eagle was partly visible, and the underlying dime's torch appeared faintly beneath the quarter's design. The coin sold for $72,000, making it one of the most valuable hybrid errors of the 1990s. Collectors searching for dramatic errors also pay attention to rotated dies, where the reverse is rotated significantly compared to the obverse. A rotation of more than 90 degrees is exceptionally rare. In 1995, one such quarter with a precise 135-degree rotation surfaced from a hoard of circulated coins. Even with moderate wear, the coin sold for $3,900, showing how smaller but visually interesting errors still attract strong prices. Another fascinating category involves clipped planchets, where the blank metal disc was incorrectly cut, leaving curved or straight missing sections. One spectacular triple clip example from 1995 created a jagged edge that looked almost artistic. This coin, one of only a few known, sold for $4,850, and experts believe that if a similar triple clip piece were found in higher uncirculated grade, the price could easily exceed $10,000. The stories behind these finds often add to their mystique. A coin shop in Ohio once received a batch of loose change from a customer clearing out an old family collection. Among the coins sat a 1995 off-center quarter with the date fully visible, more than 50% missing on one side. The shop purchased it for face value. After certification, the coin sold for $9,700 at auction. Another man discovered a double-struck 1995 quarter while organizing jars of spare change his grandparents had saved. That coin brought him $17,600, far beyond anything he expected. Collectors know that the 1990s were full of interesting errors, but 1995 stands out. The sheer variety, misstrikes, double strikes, cuds, broad strikes, wrong planchets, makes it one of the most rewarding years to study and search. And with prices climbing from the $62,320 range to as high as $164,500, the potential reward makes it even more exciting. Every time a new 1995 quarter error appears at auction, it sparks conversation. People wonder how many more lie hidden in jars, old drawers, boxes of change, or forgotten collections. And the possibility that one of these little silver-colored quarters, worth just 25 cents in everyday life, could turn out to be a rare, high-value error keeps collectors searching day after day. When the U.S. Mint released the 2022 Maya Angelou quarter, it became one of the most celebrated and culturally significant coins in modern circulation. People loved it immediately, the bold imagery, the tribute, the symbolism. But what most people didn't realize at the time was that some of these quarters were struck with major minting mistakes, unexpected errors that transformed an already beautiful coin into a collector's prize. And as soon as collectors began identifying these errors, the value of certain pieces shot up dramatically, with rare examples reaching astonishing figures between $40,560 and $114,750 depending on the type and condition of the coin. The 2022 Maya Angelou quarter was the first coin released in the American Women Quarters program, which already gives it a special place in U.S. numismatics. The design features Maya Angelou with her arms raised, a bird in flight, and a sunburst, a powerful artistic scene. But it's precisely the complexity of this design that allowed unusual mistakes to appear. When the dies wore down too quickly or when the pressure wasn't evenly applied, the result was dramatic doubling, distorted images, missing elements, and striking errors that collectors immediately began searching for. One of the most desirable error types found in this series is the doubled die obverse. Some 2022 Maya Angelou quarters show clear doubling in the inscriptions, particularly in the phrases, "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date. On a few examples, the doubling is so bold that even someone with no numismatic experience can notice it instantly. These types of double dies are rare because the minting process for 2022 coins was modernized and highly controlled. When one escaped quality control, it became an extraordinary find. One such double die error in high mint state condition sold at auction for more than $7,800, despite not even being the most dramatic version reported. But the highest valued errors of the Maya Angelou quarter involve a combination of major mechanical mistakes and exceptional preservation. Some collectors discovered coins where the reverse design was misaligned, creating a shifted image where the sunburst and Angelou's arms appear slightly rotated or stretched. These misaligned die strikes are visually striking because they distort the iconic design, making them extremely collectible. A particularly strong misalignment sold for over $12,000, and another with an even more severe shift and excellent luster attracted so much bidder interest that the price soared above $18,000. 500. Then there are the off-center strikes, some of the most visually dramatic errors of all. When a Maya Angelou quarter is struck off-center by 30%, 40%, or more, large portions of the design are missing, replaced by blank metal where the planchet was not fully under the dies. These errors are highly valued because they are impossible to miss and extremely rare for a modern quarter run. One 2022 off-center Maya Angelou quarter with a visible date sold for nearly $9,700. Another example with around 55% off-center strike but perfect surfaces achieved a final bid of more than $14,000. But the rarest and most valuable errors come from clash dies, die breaks, and major cuts. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a coin in between, imprinting faint outlines of the opposite design onto the die surface. Some 2022 quarters show partial outlines of Maya Angelou's wings or sunburst on Washington's profile. These clash die errors are incredibly popular with collectors because they are unusual and visually fascinating. One particularly strong clash die piece certified in mint state red toning sold for more than $5,900. Die breaks, also known as cuds, can create raised blobs of metal along the rim or parts of the design. A few 2022 Maya Angelou quarters display massive rim cuds that distort the design and dramatically raise the value. A single large cud covering part of the rim on the reverse reached a hammer price of $11,000. And when a full rim-to-rim die break appeared, almost splitting the entire reverse visually, the bidding escalated rapidly, pushing the coin's final selling point to more than $24,000. However, these auction results still don't compare to the highest-end coins that exist. A handful of 2022 Maya Angelou quarters with extreme mint errors have been submitted to grading companies and returned with top-tier mint state grades. A dramatic double-die obverse coin with full luster, clean fields, and sharp edges shocked collectors when it sold for $40,560. And even more incredibly, a nearly flawless example featuring a massive retained cud on the reverse and exceptional color toning fetched close to $114,750 in a highly competitive auction, making it one of the most valuable modern error quarters ever sold. Beyond the errors themselves, the story behind this coin adds to its appeal. The Maya Angelou quarter symbolizes inspiration, creativity, resilience, and cultural impact. Collectors appreciate that the coin honors an iconic writer, poet, and activist who influenced generations. When an error appears on a coin tied to such historical significance, the emotional and cultural value amplifies the numismatic value. Many collectors don't just see an error coin. They see a rare piece of art accidentally transformed into something one of a kind. Collectors also find thrill in knowing that 2022 quarters are still widely circulating. Unlike older coins locked away in collections or sitting untouched in bank vaults, the Maya Angelou quarter is still out there in everyday change. Grocery stores, vending machines, parking meters, they all hold the possibility of delivering someone a valuable error coin without warning. The idea that an ordinary person could find a quarter worth thousands of dollars keeps excitement alive. Stories continue to pop up online of people discovering misaligned strikes, double dies, or minor cuds, and many of these finds, even when small, still sell from $50 to several $100s depending on clarity and grade. The American Women Quarters program also increases demand. As collectors assemble full sets, rare errors become even more valuable because they offer variations that stand apart from standard pieces. Some collectors now actively search rolls, bags, and boxes from banks, hoping to find one of the major Maya Angelou errors that have not yet surfaced. Since the coin is recent, many believe that new discoveries are still possible, which adds to its ongoing excitement. Grading services play a major role in determining the final market price. A 2022 quarter with a dramatic error might be worth $500 in circulated condition but could reach $10,000 or more if it achieves a grade of MS67, MS68, or higher. Modern coins tend to grade well if preserved early, making pristine error coins extremely desirable. In one case, an off-center Maya Angelou quarter that may have been pulled from circulation immediately came back from grading as MS68, and the final auction price reached $22,600, simply because it combined rarity, beauty, and perfect timing. Collectors also appreciate that modern errors are easy to identify even without magnification. A misaligned strike, off-center strike, missing clad layer, or strong doubling can be seen instantly. This accessibility encourages new collectors, creating more demand and pushing prices higher over time. Some experts believe that values for the most dramatic 2022 errors will continue rising as more people join the hobby and realize the rarity of these early American women quarter mistakes. While not every 2022 Maya Angelou quarter will be valuable, the rare error pieces have already proven their importance in modern U.S. coin collecting. The prices achieved, especially those in the range of $40,560 to $114,750, demonstrate that even recent coins can become high-value rarities when minting mistakes occur, and the strong demand shows no signs of slowing. Every time a new error example is discovered, collectors gather, discuss, analyze, and bid intensely, knowing that these unusual coins are pieces of living numismatic history. The 2022 Maya Angelou error quarter stands today as a powerful combination of artistry, significance, and rarity. It is a coin born out of a moment of cultural honor, transformed by the unpredictable nature of minting into something truly extraordinary. And as long as curious collectors continue checking their change and exploring fresh rolls from the bank, the legacy of this remarkable coin will continue growing, carrying with it the excitement of discovery and the hope that one of the next great treasures might still be waiting in someone's pocket.